Ex-GOP officials are looking to form their own center-right party to break away from Trump's grip over the Republican Party. 4 people involved in those discussions told Reuters.
Oh, wow. Democratic strategist and Montgomery Council member-at-large Will Jawando and culture reporter at The Federalist, Emily Jasinski, join us now to discuss. This is kind of hilarious. Emily, let me start with you. One of the people involved with this is Evan McMullin. This seems very reminiscent of the McMullin-McMuffin effort of 2016. Bill Kristol, many other George W. Bush officials. What do you make of this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't have this little meeting on Zoom, it would have been at a steakhouse here in D.C. where they would have spent, racked up a multi-$1,000 tab. No, I think this is
good for local
ridiculous.
businesses, Emily. That would have been good for local businesses.
You mean good for Smith and Walensky?
Yeah. No. So it's really hard to take them seriously because they have backed so many outright, progressive, well, I shouldn't say progressive, but liberal candidates over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. So I doubt that they actually, this is a group of people that routinely demonstrates their lack of principles. Just like on a weekly basis, we find out that they are, that they're sort of like undercutting their purported goals left and right. And so it's impossible to take them seriously. This is not a serious threat to the Republican Party. It will not be a serious force in politics. But they can continue this sort of like intellectual masturbation that I'm sure happened on their Zoom call by stroking their own egos, pretending that they still have a voice in politics in the post-Trump era, which they absolutely do not. Anyway, it's a joke.
So, Will,
tell us what you really think.
Yeah, they're thinking of calling themselves the Integrity Party or the center-right Republican Party. And, it actually reminds me less of Evan McMullin's presidential run and more of, the no labels efforts. And the thing is, there's, the problem for this group, to me, isn't so much, that they supported Biden or they supported other liberal candidates. The problem to me is that their brand of politics is extraordinarily unpopular. There just isn't a large constituency in the country that's we really are dying for more tax cuts for wealthy people and civility over every other issue. So that's the real issue for them, is that they don't have a political agenda that has any traction with the American people.
Right. No, you're exactly right. When Emily said, ego stroking, I was thinking of, chin stroking, a lot of this going on. One thing that Americans agree about, and there's something to start from, we haven't figured it out yet, is that they know the system that precipitated this kind of thinking wasn't working for them. Whether the populism on both sides, it's not working. The trickle down doesn't work. And then doing it with a smile certainly doesn't work either. Reagan pulled that off, but I think they all put that in nostalgia and think they can get back there. But, so I don't think there's anything to this, as Emily said. The fact that I think in some of the coverage on this, you saw that 3 people that were confirmed to be there didn't want to be mentioned. There's still there's still a big fear of being against Trump's Republican Party. So I think that's still the dominant. It's similar to the demise of the Ben Nelson moderate wing of the Democratic Party, in that only similarity is that these people are just going to be continued to be fringed out, unfortunately, unless there's a major shift in who the leader of the party is.
Let me have a little bit of a countertake with you, Emily, which is that, look, even though obviously their thing is never going to be a national force, but if they actually formed this thing and they would have tons of money behind it, no doubt about that. That's not going to be an issue. Yeah. They'll have lots of media attention, right? They'll get their MSNBC and their CNN hits and all of those things. Who would this party draw more from at this point? Would it be more of a problem for the Democrats, who have sort of consolidated these affluent suburbanites into their coalition? Would it be more of a problem for Republicans, where their last vestiges of any sort of suburban base would go to this new group? Or do you just think it would be so inconsequential as to be wholly irrelevant?
I think it would sort of nibble around the edges of both parties' suburban demographics. So maybe new voters that left the Republican Party under Trump and are looking for centrist Democrats to cast their ballots for, and are looking for, an alternative option. They don't love what they're seeing from, say, AOC, and they don't love what they're seeing from Josh Hawley. So they're kind of looking for the middle ground there. And so I could see this kind of nibbling away at the edges. But the problem is ultimately that these people actually don't have principles. And it's funny because, you look at the Reagan nostalgia, and I don't think that they're actually nostalgic for Reagan policies. If you look at somebody like Bill Kristol, who tweeted that he was, he's now a feminist or whatever, their policies, their principles are what they believe is civility and decency. And of course, that entails getting us and sending American soldiers into wars left and right. They love doing that, and they love doing it under the banner of civility and decency. And so I think they don't actually have principles. They don't actually have ideology. And that's, voters, it's not like voters need you to go down the checklist of everything, but I don't know how they can have a sort of coherent messaging as a party beyond civility and decency, because they're going to be asked to take stands on various issues, and they just don't have principled stands on those issues anymore.
I mean, I disagree. I actually think they have an ideology. I think it's, bad trade deals, more wars, like you said.
To the extent they have one.
Yeah,
right.
to military industrial cuts, more tax cuts for the rich, and this sort of free market fundamentalist ideology, which is dramatically unpopular, which is why they cloak it in the mantle of civility politics, because at least people generally want people to be nice to one another. I don't know, Will, I'm cheering for them, because I would love nothing more than to have one rump irrelevant party that all the elites with bad politics can consolidate into and leave the rest of us all alone. I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, I think if you ask me that same question, I think it's a net positive for progressive Democrats and for Democrats in general, where the majority of the party is right now, because you can put all those people, like you said, in a bucket and let them argue. It's for me, it's just nice seeing a food fight on that side, and I think in the middle of that, we've got message discipline on the 1.9 trillion COVID package. Everyone loves it. We're moving forward on things. The impeachment trial, it was like the tale of two cities. One was clear, you had, and the other was just whatever that was. So I think it's great to have this for Democrats. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be irrelevant, but to the extent that it is relevant, I think it's going to help Democrats.
Yeah, like I said, I'm cheering for them. Best of luck, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Great to see you both.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you guys.
Coming up, new poll shows promising lead for Andrew Yang in New York's mayoral race. We're going to talk about his chances when Rising returns.